Look at the people you graduated with. The ones who weren't as sharp as you, who didn't understand the material as fast, who never got called gifted by a single teacher in their life. Look at their bank accounts now. Look at their salaries, their investments, the businesses they quietly built while you were still deciding what you were capable of. You think you're just bad with money, don't you? You're not. Your brain is actively paralyzing your earning potential to protect your identity. Let me explain the biological glitch that is quietly keeping you broke. There is a very specific kind of pain that comes from earning nothing close to what you're capable of. It is not the sharp sting of a failed investment or a business that didn't work out. When you try something financial and it fails, it hurts, but at least there's closure. You know where you stand. You take the loss, you learn something, you move on. But the pain of wasted earning potential is different. It's a quiet, dull ache, a persistent hum running underneath every bank statement, every LinkedIn scroll, every conversation about someone else's raise, whispering that you are running out of runway and you haven't even started building anything yet. So you sit there, scrolling past people who sat next to you in class, people who struggled with concepts you understood instantly, people who never had your vocabulary or your quick mind. And yet there they are, negotiating raises, launching side businesses, buying property, building the kind of financial life you always quietly assumed would be yours by now. And what are you doing? Standing perfectly still, trapped inside your own head, running the numbers on a business idea for the 400th time, calculating the perfect entry point into an investment you'll never actually make. Overthinking every financial decision until the anxiety forces you to just close the tab and do nothing at all. If you relate to this, listen carefully. This is not laziness. Laziness is choosing to do nothing financially and feeling completely fine about it. You do not feel fine. You feel a quiet, specific shame every time your bank balance updates. You feel like a fraud holding earning potential you're too afraid to actually spend. Hoarding ability while the compound interest clock runs out on you in real time. For a lot of you, this invisible ceiling was built a long time ago. It started with a compliment. Parents, teachers, relatives looked at you when you were young and used words like gifted, brilliant, destined for big things. At the time, it felt like a blessing. But somewhere along the way, that word, potential, stopped being a compliment about who you were and started becoming a debt about what you were supposed to earn. A debt to your family, to the adults who believed in you, to the version of yourself who was supposed to be rich by now. When you're told your whole life you're meant for financial greatness, an average income stops feeling acceptable. A modest raise stops feeling like progress. A failed investment doesn't feel like a normal part of learning how money works. It feels like proof that the gifted kid was a lie all along. So your brain does what it always does when your identity is on the line. It makes you avoid anything financial where you can't guarantee an immediate, impressive result. You shrink your financial world. You stop asking for raises. You stop pitching clients. You stop putting money into anything you might have to explain later if it goes wrong. You choose the guaranteed safety of doing nothing over the terrifying possibility of trying your hardest financially and discovering your ceiling is just ordinary. You aren't bad with money. You are paralyzed by the ghost of the net worth you were supposed to already have. Let's stop talking about feelings for a second and look at the actual hardware. Society has taught you that under-earning is a discipline problem, a sign you don't want it badly enough. But if we put you in a scanner at the exact moment you sit down to negotiate your salary or pitch your first client, your brain wouldn't look lazy. It would look terrified. Because you aren't just facing a business conversation. You're facing the possibility of financial failure. And to a brain that has tied its entire worth to being naturally gifted, financial failure isn't just a bad quarter. It's a direct threat to your identity. This triggers what neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack. Your amygdala can't tell the difference between a genuine threat and a psychological one, and it treats a rejected pitch or an awkward salary conversation the exact same way it would treat actual danger. So the moment you open that freelance proposal or draft that negotiation email, your brain floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. It screams that if this goes badly and isn't perfect, everyone will know you were never as smart as they thought. Your nervous system freezes. You aren't procrastinating on your finances. You're a deer standing in the headlights of your own inflated expectations. And when your nervous system is that overwhelmed, it looks for an exit. This is where the scrolling comes in. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, an endless stream of other people's success. You don't scroll for hours because you're entertained. You scroll because you're self-medicating. Every swipe gives you a tiny, cheap hit of dopamine. Not enough to make you happy, but just enough to quiet the anxiety about your bank account for 3 seconds at a time. Do that for years, and you burn out the exact reward system that's supposed to motivate you to build the income you actually want, leaving you with zero chemical drive to open the spreadsheet, send the invoice, or start the business. You aren't addicted to your phone. You're running from the pressure of your own unrealized earning potential, and your phone happens to be the nearest hiding spot. This brings us to the biggest lie you tell yourself to justify staying broke: perfectionism. You call it having high standards. You say you're waiting for the right market conditions, the right amount of capital, the right time to finally start. Let me be blunt. Perfectionism is not a financial strategy. It's a trauma response. It's a shield built so nobody can ever call your first attempt bad. Because if you never actually launch the business or make the investment, no one can ever prove you weren't as capable as everyone assumed. Your brain has calculated that it's safer to stay broke and remain a theoretical genius than to take action and risk becoming an ordinary earner in the real world. So take a breath. Let go of the guilt over the years you feel you've wasted financially. What you're experiencing isn't a moral failing, it's a biological glitch. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do: protect you from pain. It's just protecting you from the wrong thing. Now that you understand the glitch keeping you financially frozen, we need to talk about the psychological lie underneath it: impostor syndrome. But not the version you usually hear about. Normally, it's described as achieving success and feeling like you don't deserve it. But for someone paralyzed by their own earning potential, imposter syndrome runs in reverse. It attacks before you've even made a dollar. It isn't a reaction to success. It's a defense protecting a very specific identity. The identity of being the smart one who was always going to make it. If your entire self-worth rests on the idea that you're naturally gifted and financially destined for something big, then actually testing that potential is the most dangerous thing you could do. Because it introduces the possibility of a real, measurable ceiling. If you never launch the business, never ask for the raise, never make the investment, you get to live in a safe fantasy where your earning potential is infinite. You can watch someone else's success and quietly tell yourself you could have built that too if you'd really tried. As long as you never try, your financial genius stays intact, untested, and completely imaginary. But the moment you actually try, giving something 100% of your effort and your capital and your time, you risk discovering that your 100% isn't as impressive as you assumed. You risk finding out you're not a hidden financial prodigy, just an ordinary person who has to grind, get rejected, lose some money, and try again to get ahead. So you don't play at all. You wait until the deadline is nearly gone to send the pitch, so if it flops, you have a built-in excuse. I rushed it. It wasn't really my best work. You aren't actually afraid of losing money. You're afraid of being exposed as financially ordinary. Here's the perspective shift that might sting, but it's the one that sets you free. It's time to let go of the word potential. Because unused earning potential does not actually exist. It's a ghost, a comforting story you tell yourself to feel better about an empty investment account. Potential isn't a battery of stored wealth waiting inside you. It's just imagination until it gets converted into action. And until then, it's entirely fictional. The person who is less talented than you in school, but who is out there pitching, failing, getting told no, and trying again, isn't wasting their potential. They're building actual wealth with it. You, meanwhile, are guarding an empty vault. Now let's talk about the timeline, because there's a very specific grief that hits on your birthday, on New Year's Eve, or the moment you see someone 5 years younger than you close a deal you always assumed would be yours. You look back at the last 5 or 10 years and ask what you actually have to show for it financially. You feel like you're standing at the starting line of a race everyone else finished a decade ago. If you're 30 or 40, the idea of starting your financial life from scratch doesn't just feel difficult, it feels humiliating. Your internal monologue is brutal. I should have figured out money by now. This is a version of the sunk cost fallacy applied directly to your own earning years. You're so fixated on the income you feel you've already lost that your brain convinces you to throw away the decades you have left, simply because the math of starting late feels unfair. Because you feel so far behind, you fall into something called temporal discounting. Your ego demands one massive financial win to justify the delay and make up for lost time all at once. You refuse small, gradual steps because they feel humiliatingly inadequate when you believe you're a decade behind schedule. You want the overnight transformation, the single deal that fixes everything. So you wait for the perfect, flawless moment to launch the project that will instantly catapult your net worth to where it should already be. That moment never comes. The bitter irony is that your desperate need to catch up immediately is the exact thing keeping you financially frozen in the present. You're comparing your unwritten first year of building wealth to someone else's 20th. Here's the grounding truth. The financial timeline is an illusion. There's no cosmic schedule you're failing to meet, no universal deadline for your first 6 figures. The only thing you're failing is an arbitrary deadline you absorbed from a culture that profits off your anxiety about falling behind. If you want to rebuild your financial trajectory, it's going to take real time. Maybe 5 years to build the income, the business, or the investment portfolio you actually want. Your instinct might be to panic at that number. But here's the freeing part. The 5 years pass either way. You can be 5 years older with the financial life you started building today, or 5 years older sitting in the exact same spot, still wishing you'd started. The choice is yours. So how do we actually fix this? Insight without action is just entertainment. We need a 3-step framework to rewire the hardware, because you cannot think your way out of a financial freeze response. You have to act your way out. Step 1 is imperfect execution. Right now, your amygdala hijacks your nervous system because the stakes of starting feel enormous. If your first attempt has to be a masterpiece, of course you're paralyzed. So we lower the stakes to 0. Send the ugly pitch, publish the bare bones freelance profile, list the mediocre first product. You have to prove to your nervous system that a flawed financial attempt will not kill you. Because right now, your brain equates an imperfect launch with total exposure. Lower the bar from genius to acceptable, and the fear evaporates enough for you to actually move. Step 2 is identity uncoupling. You have to surgically separate your self-worth from your income number. For years, you've operated under the exhausting belief that you are what you earn, or worse, that you are the earning potential you were promised as a kid. Let that gifted kid go. He served you well in childhood. He's ruining your adult finances. From here forward, you are a laborer in your own financial life. A carpenter who builds a chair with a wobbly leg doesn't have an identity crisis about his worth as a human being. He just sands the leg down. Treat a bad quarter, a rejected pitch, or a lost client the same way. Stop making your income a mirror of your soul and start treating it as a mechanical skill you're building. Step 3 is micro-doing effort. Your financial dopamine baseline is broken because you keep trying to jump from 0 motivation straight into executing a 5-year wealth plan in a single afternoon. That's neurologically impossible, and your brain will reject it every time. Instead, work on your income for 5 minutes. Set a timer. When it's up, stop. Even if you feel motivated to keep going. You aren't just trying to get a task done, you're rebuilding trust with yourself. Because for years, you've promised yourself you'd fix your finances tomorrow, and broken that promise every time. 5 honest minutes, kept exactly as promised, gives your brain a small, real hit of proof that you follow through. Over a few weeks, 5 minutes becomes 15, then an hour. And you stop needing motivation to show up because you've quietly rebuilt the pathway that makes showing up automatic. There's one final shift left, and it might be the most important one: the liberation of being financially average. For your whole life, you've carried an invisible backpack packed with the expectations of parents, teachers, and mostly yourself. You've believed that because you were smart, your income had to be extraordinary, and anything less was a quiet tragedy. Here's the relieving truth: the world does not care about your earning potential. Nobody is sitting around waiting to see if you finally cash in on being the smart one. Everyone is consumed by their own bank balance and their own sense of falling behind. That spotlight you feel judging your income, you're the only one holding it, and you're allowed to turn it off. There's a real freedom in accepting you're just a regular person building regular wealth at a regular pace. When you let yourself be an average, clumsy beginner at money, you strip away the terror of needing every financial move to prove something. Right now, there's a quiet argument running in your head between two versions of you. The fantasy version, who never loses money, who built an empire effortlessly starting a decade ago, who exists purely in your imagination. And the real version, tired, a little behind, a little scared, but actually here, actually able to open a spreadsheet today. The fantasy version is a tyrant, and it is strangling the real one. If you want an actual financial life, you have to let that fantasy version go, grieve the effortless fortune you always assumed was coming, and start participating in the slow, unglamorous, very real process of building wealth from wherever you're standing right now. You don't have to make up a decade of lost income by tomorrow morning. You just have to take one small, imperfect financial step today, exactly where you are. Your earning potential was never a debt you owed anyone. It was never a moral obligation. It's just an option, and it's time to cash it in, messy and small as that first step will be. Because an ordinary income you actually build will always beat a brilliant one that only ever existed in your head. If this helped you make sense of why your bank account doesn't match your potential, subscribe. Because we're building a space here for the real psychology behind money, not surface-level hustle advice. Before you go, tell me in the comments which part of this hit closest to home, and name the one small, imperfect financial move you're actually going to make today, even if it's just 5 minutes. I read every comment. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.